from to have the public hearing for the special meeting?
You know, I don't know. You need to have a quorum in order to take action,
Right, but there's no action to be taken tonight.
but there's no action to be taken. So I'm not sure about that.
Fancy. Are we required to have a quorum to have the public hearing for the special meeting?
You know, I don't know.
Nope. Deja vu.
Uh-oh, it's happening with the audio.
Someone
Sorry,
has
that was my fault. I've muted it.
Oh,
We just went live on YouTube, and when it popped up, it started playing. So that
Well,
was
now we have a quorum, so it's not an issue.
Well, right. So there are 5 council members here, and hey to everybody watching at home. I am going to give us a couple of more minutes here, but then I'm going to go ahead and call the special meeting to order. Who is our court reporter this evening? Do we know?
I don't know. I can ask Douglas. He arranged it.
Oh, he's raised his hand. Hey, Mr. Smith, yeah, please inform us.
Yes, Ray Donio is trying to get into the room right now. He's having some trouble with getting his audio video working. Amber, I believe he's also trying to contact you.
Oh, he's in.
Oh, great.
And Amber, you're muted.
Okay, great. Everything's
Yep, he's
resolved.
in.
Thank you.
Mr. Donio, I am going to have, oh, hello.
Here we go. I finally got it. Can you hear me?
We can.
Great, great. Okay, I got it.
Mr. Donio, when we get started here in just a few moments, I'm going to do a brief preamble, and then I'm going to have you swear in all the necessary persons.
Okay, will do.
Great. Just so we're all aware, if it's at all possible, the way that I'd like this to go is Mr. Delfs, if you can tee up the city and the city's perspective on the project briefly. We'll then hear from the applicant and partners and counsel. I see Miss Shank is on the call. Ms. Shank, my apologies. And then we will engage public comment. So great. Good evening, Claudia. Have we received any communication from councilors Garcia Molina or Diaz?
I have not, no.
All right, well, I've reached out to both of them. So Ms. Strazo, if you could just keep an eye on the attendees list for our colleagues. Okay. Good evening, everybody. The time I have is 6:05 on Thursday, the 27th of August in the year 2020. I hereby call this special meeting of the Council of the City of Lancaster to order. First, maybe just for effect, Mr. Harris, would you call the roll of members, please?
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Roya,
Here.
Ms. Beke,
Here.
Ms. Craig,
Here.
Ms. Diaz, Mr. Garcia Molina, Mr. Soto,
Here.
and President Smith-Waddell.
Here. Thank you, Mr. Harris. So as we all know, the purpose of tonight's meeting, and there is one purpose of tonight's meeting, is to hold the public hearing required by law for a proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance. The owner of the site at 250 College Avenue, known affectionately as St. Joe's Hospital or previously as UPMC, has petitioned to change the zoning of that site from HC Hospital Complex to MU Mixed Use. That is the purpose of tonight's meeting. I feel the need to clarify, because this is both a special meeting and a public hearing, the topics that we can discuss are limited. There is, for example, not an opportunity for public comment on items not on the agenda. And the legal sort of bumpers, guide rails, whatever you have, require us to move in a way that conversation is kept to the matter at hand. So for example, the rezoning of other sites is not a topic of discussion this evening. And that's not just because I don't want to talk about it. It's again, because of our legal guide rails. Or for example, where it is not germane, let's say police reform, a favorite subject of mine, or the wastewater treatment plant. These items are not up for discussion this evening. They are up for discussion at any other regular council meeting, but not here tonight. Counselors, our legal responsibility here is pretty well prescribed within the public hearing, and our comments and questions ought be directed to the matter of the presentation, the matter of the zoning fitness, the matter of whether the rezoning is a fit for the community or not, and other things that are directly related to that. So if all comments and questions could stay in that lane and be couched in that framework as we approach what we're hearing tonight and public comment, that would, I think, be best for all of us. And we should stray wide in this, the public hearing, of commenting on our specific opinions. We are free to engage and converse, but this is not an opportunity for vote signaling or deliberation, which is supposed to happen on September 8th. September 8th, everybody. At 7:30 p.m., when this will be an item on the agenda, just like any other ordinance for our consideration. Counselors, does that make sense to you? You can just nod. Everybody's okay. We're on board. And just keeping in mind that we are in a couple of ways in uncharted territory, but I have faith in all of you and the public to manage this as well as possible. To the public, briefly, thank you for being present. I anticipate robust public comment, which I think is only natural for a site of this size and importance. I am going to ask you to please keep your comments to 3 minutes in length. I know that is challenging, but if we find ourselves with a significant amount of brevity in public comment, maybe there are comments that we can return to, but given the amount of comment that I anticipate, I'm going to ask us to keep our comments direct and to the point, because I have a responsibility to provide for everybody to comment this evening. I will also let you know that we have received, Mr. Harris, how many comments have we received in writing?
I have not counted. I can count if you'd like.
Would you please?
Certainly.
Your regular reminder that Mr. Harris is the only thing that keeps City Council running, or at least me. Which is maybe not germane to the topic of the meeting, so if somebody wants to write me a speeding ticket, now's the time.
15 are on the list.
So we have 15 on the list. Does that include our letters from institutional stakeholders?
No, we have 3 of those.
Okay. So those will be read into the record. And I will also ask Mr. Harris, once I open the hearing, and you'll forgive me for talking at length, I will also ask Mr. Harris to enter previous comments submitted on this matter into the record as a batch. They do not, I will not read, good God, all 30 of them again, but they will be entered into the record together so that they are part of the permanent and public record of this meeting. Is it my understanding that those previous written submitted comments are still available on the city website?
Yes.
Okay, so for everybody looking to see other comments as they may have been read into the record, they are previously on the city website. Okay. Before we get started, are there any procedural questions from council, staff, or applicants? I'm seeing general head shaking, so I'm going to assume that's a no. Excellent. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate language, but I hereby call to order a public hearing on the matter of the petitioner UPMC's application to have the site at 250 College Avenue rezoned from HC Hospital Complex to MU mixed use. We will begin by having our court reporter, Mr. Danio, swear in the relevant parties. Sir.
Just raise your right hands, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes.
So I think I need that from petitioners. I need that from HDC and Washington Place and their equities, and I believe from petitioners' counsel as well.
Sorry, didn't know.
Yep, that's fine. We're all building the train as we ride it here. Is that correct, Mr. Danio?
Yes.
And Mr. Delps, you're muted.
We're swearing in.
Yeah.
I'm
if
sorry,
you would
Mr. Harris. Say that one more time, Mr. Harris. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Harris.
I just said, I was just telling Mr. Delps that he was still muted.
Thank you.
I see.
Okay.
So can we have, we'll start with Ms. Schenk. Just people affirm that they give their name and affirm that they so swear for the purposes of the record.
Yes, Claudia Schenk, I affirm.
Great. Ms. Hohenadel,
Bernadette Hohenadel, I affirm.
Ms. Hanshin,
Dana Hanshin, I affirm.
Mr. Hicks,
Bud Hicks, I affirm.
and Mr. Wicker.
Dominic Wicker, I affirm.
I love it. Thank you, guys. Thank you all very much. And I apologize for the stuttering process. So let's begin by hearing from Mr. Delps, and we'll go from there. Mr. Delps.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I appreciate you setting the stage for the hearing tonight. I think you did a very nice job. I know that I've been before council several times now to talk about this project, and I've talked about the history at some length. I think it might be valuable for me to just touch on a few of those highlights again by way of introduction. As Council President noted, there is a zoning petition before Council tonight. It was first brought to the City Planning Commission in December of last year, 2019, to rezone the property in question from hospital complex to mixed use. The Planning Commission heard that request on that night in December, decided to table and heard that request a second time in January of 2020 this year. During both of those meetings, there was a lot of very thorough, robust discussion about the proposal to rezone the underlying land. There are also a lot of questions about what the community could expect in the way of land development following a rezoning. The Planning Commission did end up unanimously supporting the rezoning request in January. The commissioners also did issue a number of considerations at that time to council. They focused on a couple important points. One, that the project ultimately, following the rezoning, be a transformative project for the community. They also focused on affordable housing as being a really critical component for the overall vision for the site. I want to say from my standpoint, following this project very closely and working through our department, Community Planning and Economic Development, that I think that the applicant and the development team has really responded to those priorities that the Planning Commission raised in a very big way. In my book, this is absolutely a transformative project. It will not only revitalize an entire block of the city where there's currently a vacant building, but it is anticipated to be a true mixed use, mixed income project on the site. And we'll hear a lot more about the vision for that project later tonight. I think the last thing that I would note is that the County Planning Commission, which always weighs in on our projects as well, also affirmed that the mixed use designation for the site was consistent with our planning guidance. And we've found that consistently through the city process and the county process. I think I will pause there. If there are additional questions about process or any clarifications that I can make along the way, please let me know. But if it works for you, Mr. President, I think we'll turn it over to the applicant at this time.
Briefly, Mr. Delfs, is it appropriate, you think, to enter the recommendations of the City and County Planning Commission into the public record of the hearing?
Yes, I do think that's a good idea. I believe that Ms. Shank may have included those as exhibits with her application, but if we do not have those, we absolutely can make those documents available.
Ms. Shank, are they a part of your application?
They are, and maybe I could just start. I had sent some exhibits to Mr. Harris earlier this evening, and we'll get those to Mr. Danio to be admitted as part of the record. But maybe I could just start by going through the exhibit list of the materials that we're asking to be made part of the record of tonight's hearing so that we can know what's been included at this point.
Please do.
So Exhibit 1 would be proof of publication and notice of the hearing. Exhibit 2 is the rezoning application that was submitted by the petitioner. Exhibit 3 is all of the letters that were previously submitted to council regarding the rezoning, as you've noted. Exhibit 4 is the Lancaster County Planning Commission review letter of January 6th. Exhibit 5 would be Mr. Delf's memo to the City Planning Commission of January 15th. Exhibit 6 would be the City Planning Commission's recommendations and comments. And then Exhibit 7 would be the slides for tonight's presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Harris, do you have all of said documentation?
I have most of said documentation. There's a few things that Mr. Smith has.
Okay. Well, I will presume that we have all of those documents and that we will have them, that if we don't, we'll have them immediately after the hearing, and they can be entered as part of the public documentation. With that, Ms. Schenk, I'm presuming that you are counsel for the petitioner, so you may proceed.
I am, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that you can see the PowerPoint. Okay, is that visible to everyone?
Yes.
Okay. So as I indicated, I'm Claudia Schenk from McNeese, Wallace, and Nurek, and I'm the counsel for the petitioner in this matter. I just wanted to start off tonight's presentation by taking a few steps back. I know just a few weeks ago, we heard a very exciting presentation from Washington Place Equities and HDC about the development proposal for this project. But given the phase that we're at in the process right now, just at the rezoning, so obviously there'll be a subsequent subdivision and land development phase that HDC and WPE will need to go through. I want to make sure that we're talking more generally about the planning considerations that support the rezoning we're requesting tonight. And we're requesting, as you know well, a rezoning of this parcel from hospital complex to mixed use. So the first slide is an aerial map of the property. You're all very familiar with it. It's roughly 6.5 acres, bordered by College, Marietta, West End, and Walnut Street. Number of different adjacencies to the site, primarily residential, but there are also some medical office and commercial adjacencies there as well. Mr. Delfs did a great job of talking through the chronology of the project, which is something that I wanted to make part of the record this evening. As he indicated, this process began in December of last year when we submitted our petition. Just a few other matters that I would just add to his recitation of the background here. Obviously, on August 3rd was when we were before you for a committee meeting. At that time, there was a full presentation made about the project proposal, and you'll be hearing an abbreviated version of that this evening. August 6th, there was a neighborhood virtual meeting that took place to solicit the public input regarding the project and the proposal. Obviously, tonight is our full public hearing on the matter, and then September 8th is the evening that's been advertised for the vote when we'll be asking you to act favorably upon the petition. In terms of the development objectives for the site, and again, Mr. Delfs went over some of these here this evening, but some of the priorities that the city identified early in the process, really in January of this year, are listed here on the slide. So maximizing affordable and market rate housing, making the site more porous, a focus on the streetscape, balancing commercial uses, housing, job opportunities, and then rehabilitating historical assets, existing structures, and a focus on sustainable design. And some of these are the things that were also emphasized by the community members as well. When you look at that list of priorities and you consider it in the context of the available zoning districts in the city, it's clear that mixed use is the correct fit for this site. Mixed use is really the only zoning designation that would allow all of these different things to occur in the same location. So I think based on the list of priorities alone, it's clear that this is the appropriate zoning. Also looking at Growing Together and Places 2040, Growing Together being the Lancaster Intermunicipal Committee Plan, Comprehensive Plan, and Places 2040 obviously as our county comprehensive plan. So looking to those as well, I think the rezoning to mixed use is supported. So both of those plans emphasize and focus on mixed use development. And of course, mixed use development has been a focus of our discussions with the city as well. Places 2040 in particular talks about the importance of increasing the supply and diversity of housing types, which mixed use would allow us to do, and targeting growth in the central Lancaster County urban growth area where this property is located. This would also be an infill project within the city, which is again something that is promoted, emphasized by Places 2040. So in addition to the city's priorities supporting the mixed use rezoning, Growing Together and Places 2040 would support it as well. The next slide is just a aerial map showing a little bit of the zoning adjacencies surrounding the property. Obviously, the property we're discussing is depicted in blue in the hospital complex zoning. And I took excerpts from the zoning ordinance here on the slide regarding the definitions of the zoning districts. So hospital complex district, designed to provide locations for facilities licensed in the Commonwealth as hospitals and accessory uses. Obviously, this site is not a hospital. It hasn't been for some time at this point. So that zoning category no longer really fits the character of the property. Turning to mixed use and looking at definitionally what is included within that zone, areas of the city characterized by residential in close proximity to non-residential, which we clearly have here. You can see on the map that there's a number of residential and office adjacencies to the site. And then I think the next part is important, including historic warehouses and manufacturing facilities that may have been vacated by original industries. So there's a focus on redevelopment of existing buildings within this zone. This is another reason why the mixed use zoning designation is appropriate for this site, because we are looking at redevelopment of existing buildings and structures, and mixed use was really designed to accommodate that kind of development. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Washington Place Equities and to HDC to talk a little bit about their project proposal. Certainly, we hope and expect and anticipate that they are going to be the developers for the site and that their proposal will come to fruition. But I think it's important, given where we're at the process, to emphasize the planning considerations here and why this is the appropriate zoning for the site, even if for whatever reason this project would not ultimately come to fruition. So with that, I will turn it over to Bernadette Hohenadel, who's counsel for Washington Place Equities.
And I will not say much. What you want to hear from is you want to hear from Washington Place and from HDC. Ms. Schenk did outline for you and set sort of the context within which your decision is to be made this evening. Mr. Wicker and Ms. Hanshin will now provide you with an overview, which you've already seen, but we'll do again, of the concept that they have for the site, of providing a mixed opportunity for various types of residential, commercial, and retail that would maximize opportunities for the surrounding neighborhood as well as for the city. I will just say, keep in mind, this is concept at this point. This is step one in a very, very long process. Step one in a process that you will see us before the city many, many more times. And this might be the most important step, because without rezoning, the proposed concept will not be able to come to fruition. So I would ask that you keep that in mind. If you have questions for me now or later, please feel free to ask me. But I think that I will turn this over now to Mr. Wicker and allow him to start the presentation on the proposed redevelopment of this site.
Great. Thanks, Bernadette. Thanks, Claudia. And Claudia, you'll still drive here? Perfect. Great. Thanks. So we're just looking at, a little bit more of a bird's eye shot of the site. I know you're very familiar with it. College Ave is in the foreground. Wanted to just call out a few sort of nomenclature that we've been using on the site as we orient you through the program. The building on the right, we're calling that basically right at this point, the old hospital. Building on the left at the corner of Marietta and College, new hospital, and then the rear parking, and then the mental health facility along Marietta Avenue. So let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, no graphic. Well, maybe the next slide there. I don't know why the graphics aren't popping up. So I think you've seen it. I'm not sure why there's no graphic, but so we're looking at basically a mixed use, mixed income project. Taken all together, all the different component pieces, we're pushing, but not quite at $100 million of private investment. We're looking at really 4 major uses on the overall project. There's in the old hospital building. Claudia, could you go back to the graphic or yeah, let's go back there. So for the old hospital building, we're proposing a conversion using federal historic tax credits to a market rate a multifamily project, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 150 to 175 units. In the new building, our current model, our new hospital rather, current model is showing that as a office conversion with about 50,000 square feet of commercial office space. In the rear, where you see the parked cars, we're looking at that as a opportunity to kind of restore the townhouses that were once there. We're looking at about 25 to 30 lots, depending on how that's configured. And those would be for sale, market rate for sale. And then on the left of the site, right along Marietta, that would be the location for the second phase of HDC's affordable housing component. And they'll talk a little bit more about that. Throughout the site, we think that this combination of a variety of uses is very appropriate on the site. We feel that the higher density uses belongs on College Ave and then sort of steps back down into the neighborhood. And as I mentioned before, we think that the scale, particularly along Marietta and West End Avenue, are particularly important so as not to kind of overwhelm the existing residential neighborhoods. We believe that there'll be this in and of itself is about as sustainable of a development as you can have, in the fact that it reuses existing infrastructure, it reuses existing buildings, it promotes a walkability and a livability that I don't think you find in a typical greenfield type opportunity. We will also be looking at doing, throughout sort of best practices of sustainable development, construction work, including, through stormwater, energy efficiency, et cetera. But as Bernadette mentioned at the beginning, we're very, very early in the design development phase. But this is sort of our working idea of a concept, and we're excited for it. I guess I can make one last note before we move on, is that from a parking perspective, we're working hard to, walking that line between providing adequate parking for all of the different components while not providing a sea of parking, because we think there's better uses for this sort of scarce land. But on this site, all of the individual uses will be, parked at sufficient levels, and we feel good about that, so as not to kind of impinge further on any type of street or neighborhood parking assets. So maybe you can skip 2 slides ahead, Claudia. And let me turn it over to Claude or Dana.
Thanks, Dominic. I'll go over the expected phases for the affordable piece. If you take a look at the master site, the gold square that you see is the anticipated phase 2, which is 3/4 of an acre on the master site. Our expectation there is 50 to 60 apartments. Phase 1 will be a piece of property directly across from the current entry of the master site on College Avenue that you see outlined in reddish orange. The second site is the site right that you see to the left on Wheatland Avenue, which is currently a parking lot. The College Avenue piece is currently housing an abandoned building adjacent to a parking deck. Next slide, please. Our expectation is that phase 1 will be 50 to 60 apartments between the 2 sites, spread across them in some configuration. Approximately $14.7 million financed using low-income housing tax credits. All of the apartments will be affordable to lower-income residents. Households with incomes ranging from $12,000 to $40,000 annually, depending on household size. Our expectation for phase 1 is 42 one-bedroom apartments and 18 two-bedroom apartments, ranging in price from $200 to $850 a month. Let me say here that that configuration may change, as will probably everything that we are looking at as architects and contractors and everyone else in the city takes a look at how we can do this in the best way possible. In phase 2, we're proposing 50 to 60 apartments that will be very different from phase 1 in that we are going to attempt to bring a proposed townhouse configuration that will blend in well with what Dominic is planning on the master site. We're proposing the townhouse configuration for 2 reasons. Number 1 is that we can put some 2 and 3 bedroom townhome units there so that we can open this particular phase up for families. Secondly, and most importantly, we want to incorporate a program that we have successfully done here in the local area, where we will offer for sale the townhomes to eligible residents at the end of 15 years. That will be a low entry price for the townhomes and some down payment assistance and other types of assistance to allow families who are eligible to own a home. I'll now go to Dana for a discussion about our community engagement. Next slide.
Thanks, Claude. As shared, there's a really exciting opportunity with to provide affordable housing as part of this proposed concept, and as a result of if it's rezoned as mixed use. The community benefit, as you know, in terms of affordable housing and the need in Lancaster is huge, and there's limited land to be able to address that need. And this really provides a great opportunity to build at the scale with a total of up to 120 units of affordable housing. So we had engaged early on in the process, starting in July, process to share our overall concept, to talk about the scale of the proposed concept, the connectivity of the uses and to the existing landscape and neighborhood, and then also to talk about the amenities, to get feedback from residents and from stakeholders about their thoughts and concerns and how we could best address them. And Claudia had shared that we had a community meeting, a neighborhood meeting, where we had over 50 individuals attend. That was on August 6th. We did a poll as part of our Zoom virtual meeting that showed 80% of the people participating supported the rezoning and the project concept. In addition, we also flyered in and around the direct blocks, 200 neighboring households, to make sure that everyone was aware of this project and provided them information to reach out to us, and also launched a project website so that people can find out in real time the progress that we are working on, the ways that they can participate, and provide input and feedback, including the schedule of events with council. We have met with the following neighborhood groups: the Clock Tower Condo Association, Put People First campaign, representatives from the neighboring Wheatland Avenue site, West Lancaster Jewels Neighborhood Committee. We've also been able to secure letters of support from key stakeholders, which includes cross-sector collaboration, Coalition for Sustainable Housing, Lancaster Equity CDC, Lancaster City Alliance Building on Strength Group, which is a plan that addresses housing and economic development needs in the city, which we believe this project does meet. And then we have letters from the Lancaster Chamber of Commerce, as well as Assets Lancaster, who we intend to work with around attracting local businesses that are diverse and inclusive. And then we also have a letter of support from the United Disabilities Services. We at HDC design and develop our housing to serve a percentage of people with disabilities. That includes physical, hearing, seeing, as well as intellectual disabilities, that we're working with them to meet those needs at this site as well. Next slide, Claudia. So we just have some quotes here from residents. August 11th, we had more than 20 neighbors reach out to City Council to express their voice around the support of the rezoning, and just included a few quotes here. We've tried to authentically, and with the capacity and time that we have, to have reached out and connected with as many individuals and groups as possible, to talk with them about the project and to share with them why this is an important transformational concept to pursue with the city. And the opportunity to do that only starts with approving the zoning to mixed use. And thank you.
Is that,
The
is
end.
that it from the petitioner?
Yes, so that's all that we have for council in terms of a presentation this evening. And we are certainly all here and available to answer any questions that council has.
Okay. Wonderful. Counselors, I would like to give you the opportunity to engage with city staff, the petitioner, Washington Place, and HDC before we roll into public comment. So now is your opportunity. Are there any questions or comments from council so far? All right. I guess it is true that we've seen this presentation and its content several times. So thank you to the petitioner and partners for making this information so available to us. If you'll give me just a moment, we'll now enter into the public comment period, and you will have the privilege of hearing my dulcet tones reading several public comments that have been emailed so that they may be read into the record. So if you'll bear with me just a second. Before I begin reading, just so I don't step on anybody's comment, can I be heard on the call? Great. So I will, and thank you to Mr. Harris for preparing these public comments as received. The first comment I have is from Bridget Holden on the 900 block of West Walnut Street. My name is Bridget Holden. My family and I support rezoning the property located on College Avenue from HC to MU. I have lived within 3 blocks of this area most of my life. The neighborhoods are vibrant, walkable, and convenient. Our Lancaster community is in dire need of housing. The former hospital building no longer serves its purpose. Another hospital system is not coming to this location. Our community will not see a hospital on this site. Changing the zoning will allow for HDC Washington Equities to give other families an opportunity to live and work in this terrific part of our great city. While these 2 organizations offer concepts, nothing can move forward until we change the zoning. Change the zoning. Next, we have Robert Lowing from the 300 block of Northwest End Avenue. First, we request an environmental impact study to address and resolve the following traffic safety concerns before adding more population to the residential 2 zone of the 300 block of Northwest End Avenue and Buchanan Avenue. We request that council challenge plans to open Alley 30 to vehicular traffic from Marietta Avenue to Buchanan Avenue. Alley 30 connects Buchanan Avenue and West Walnut along the border of the R2 and R3 zoning districts. As residents of the 300 block of Northwest End, we are concerned about pedestrian safety and traffic noise on Northwest End, Buchanan, and Alley number 30 with the development of the 250 College Avenue housing projects. We urge the council to require the developers to devise measures that will ameliorate the existing traffic and noise issues as they plan to increase the population by 400 to 500 new residents. Commuter hour traffic can bring aggressive drivers, motorcyclists, and oversized commercial trucks to Northwest End Avenue. This is a contradiction to the quality of life for young families with children and elderly pedestrians who chose to live in an R2 zoning district. Semi-trailer trucks frequently break off the limbs of shade trees growing on the islands between traffic lanes. The noise level of passing vehicles makes it difficult for neighbors to carry on a conversation on their front porch or listen to entertainment within their home. Vehicular traffic affects visitors to the dog park and other events held at Buchanan Park as they try to cross Buchanan Avenue. The 3-way stop signs at the intersection of Northwest End Avenue are not always obeyed. Pedestrians depend upon the courtesy of drivers to cross the street during commuter hours and into the early evening. Alley 30 is a public street. However, it is never plowed and a city street sweeper has never been seen there. The paving is a patchwork affair that floods into a lake after a heavy rain. Hospital employees use the alley as a shortcut coming and going to work, but new residents would find 2-lane driving difficult and impossible in the winter. Therefore, we ask council to require developers to submit a traffic plan that will ensure the safety of the current and future residents of 300 to 388 Northwest End Avenue and alley number 30. Not to take away from the seriousness of Mr. Loewen's comment, but patchwork affair is a particularly lovely phrase and likely the name of my new band. Justin Ulyss from the 300 block of Northwest End Avenue simply says, I support the rezoning of this site. Jose Diaz from Helen Avenue in Manheim Township says, the authenticity of a community as thriving is as good as the strength of its weakest link. In Lancaster City, that link is the level of poverty. With a poverty rate near 25%, salaries ranging near $19,000 per year, and rent over $800, there are not many choices to improve one's standard of living. Adding in additional expenses, even a wage of $15 per hour would be insufficient for a family to have decent living conditions. Now consider the effect of COVID-19. For many essential service workers, our heroes, their lives have turned dreadful. Common sense dictates that government take all necessary measures to protect lives and eradicate disease. Nevertheless, the city government is considering the petition by UPMC to rezone the historical St. Joe's Hospital in their thirst for profits. The process started in 2017. With $750 million of taxpayer money, UPMC Pinnacle acquired 2 hospitals, one of them St. Joe's, under the designation of nonprofit and proceeded to close them on February 28, 2019. These funds never resulted in any structural improvements to the facility. Meanwhile, the city lost $312,000 in tax revenue and accepted the donation of $100,000 to $125,000 in exchange for not challenging their tax-exempt status. Now, more than ever, the City Council must do whatever it takes to keep the property as a viable hospital to respond to COVID-19 and other health crises that will keep affecting us for the foreseeable future. UPMC system has already been well served. Eli Flanagan from the 800 block of Marietta Avenue says, hello, Council. My name is Eli Flanagan. I live with my family in the 800 block of Marietta Avenue. Thank you for your ongoing work engaging the developers and proposed development of the College Avenue parcel. I am in favor of the proposed rezoning to mixed use. I am also supportive of the residential components to the proposed development from HDC Mid-Atlantic and Washington Place Equities. Angela PL from the 400 block of North Mary Street says, I strongly endorse this redevelopment plan and would be happy to offer sound reasons to move forward with it. All right. Cindy Sawicki from the 800 block of West Walnut Street says, I would like to submit a comment in favor of the request to amend the Lancaster zoning ordinance to rezone the UPMC Pinnacle site located on College Avenue from HC to MU. As a resident on the 800 block of West Walnut for the past 14 years, I have watched the failure of multiple hospital systems at that location with the realization that use has passed its time and place. A project that can help to transform an empty building and lot into an alternative positive development, I see as our chance for a path forward as a neighborhood and for the city as a whole, especially with the inclusion of addressing the need for affordable housing for city residents. That said, I would kindly request doing what is possible to minimize impact from construction noise and blowing debris, a challenge many of us face with the construction from the 900 block of West Walnut. I would also recommend having a plan in place with the clean team / safety patrols, both during construction and especially as part of a long-standing effort for the success of a new development in the neighborhood. We then move to Mr. Daniel Long. I think that's actually Reverend Long, but we have the following questions / concerns related to the UPMC rezoning with particular concern for the proposed plans where the block, where the hospital currently stands. 1, what would be the probable population on the hospital block once all apartments, homes, and townhomes are occupied? Based on this population, how many vehicles would need parking? How many parking places will be provided on the hospital block site for those who work, shop, and live there? Have there been studies completed to assess the impact of the increased demand of this increased population on local schools, parks, utility infrastructure, traffic in the surrounding neighborhoods, and parking for existing residents? Concerns are local parking for current residents is already stressed because of the dog park and events in Buchanan Park. The increased population and its need for parking would further exacerbate this situation. 2, Northwest End has become a major entrance and exit route for those coming from the south into the city. This makes for traffic congestion and increased safety concerns for pedestrians and bikers during rush hours and when there are large events in the city. The density of the proposed development of the hospital block would significantly increase traffic on Northwest End. The density of the hospital block appears to be significantly higher than most of the blocks in the College Park and surrounding neighborhoods. The design of the hospital block purports to restore the original nature of this block, but having row houses too deep and a townhouse configuration that has the appearance of an apartment complex is a significantly different kind of design than for most of the surrounding blocks in the neighborhood. John Haney from the 600 block of West Chestnut Street says, I am writing as a neighbor to share my full support of the proposed rezoning of 250 College Avenue to mixed use. Unfortunately, the property is no longer viable as a hospital complex, and redevelopment into a mixed-use property makes the most sense. I strongly hope that as the plans progress, the city holds the developers to their promise of including low-income housing as a part of the project. Laura Howell of the 300 block of Northwest End Avenue says, please note that I am strongly in favor of rezoning the UPMC site to mixed use, from hospital complex. It is a perfect way to grow Lancaster City, offering much needed affordable housing, replacing long ago torn down row houses, adding offices and retail. Also, increasing the city's tax base will be a win for all residents. Jen Marie McDonald on East New Street says, I'm concerned about the rezoning of this hospital complex zone during a pandemic. As of right now, no one knows when the pandemic will end. Many sources predict that it will continue through 2021 and even beyond. There are still many unknowns about COVID-19 and its long-term effects, and there are still a lot of cases. Our community can't afford to lose any medical space during this time of uncertainty. Another area of uncertainty our community continues to face is housing. I read this morning that in the US, between 19 to 23 million people are at risk of being evicted in the next few months since federal programs have ended. This could mean a big increase in the number of folks without homes. An HC zone like this could, as a homeless shelter, house many local families with nowhere else to go. With so many unknowns and so many people's lives and the quality of their lives at risk, why rezone a valuable hospital complex zone during a pandemic? John Holden from the 300 block of Northwest End Avenue says, once again, I wish to voice my support for rezoning the former St. Joe's property at 250 College Ave. As a nearly 50-year resident of Northwest End Avenue, this rezoning will allow a developer to move forward. I support the HDC Mid-Atlantic and Washington Place Equities proposal. It is by far the best and most ambitious project for this site. Rezoning is a must due to the realization that a hospital will never be at that site again. Economic and current health practices make the site unfeasible. Without rezoning, the site will sit empty. You have an opportunity to assist up to 120 low-income families. My mother moved to 342 Northwest End Avenue in 1971 while earning slightly more than the minimum wage. It changed the life of me and my two sisters. Please allow that opportunity to others. Brian, hold on a second. I have three more of these, so please bear with. Brian Fraley on the 300 block of Northwest End Avenue. My name is Brian Fraley, and I live in the neighborhood of the proposed development of the former St. Joe's Hospital. I am sympathetic to the concerns raised by some of those opposed to the rezoning of the land from hospital to mixed use. There are significant disparities in access to affordable and accessible healthcare in our country, in our county, and in our city. I do not believe, however, that these disparities will be in any way addressed by preventing the rezoning of the old hospital complex and surrounding land. The current facility and infrastructure will not support a modern healthcare facility, and it is extremely unlikely that any hospital provider could be induced to repurpose the buildings for hospital use. The proposal under consideration is balanced with regard to increasing the amount and quality of affordable housing. It will restore the residential character of the neighborhood and almost certainly increase the tax base for the city. Should the rezoning fail and the zoning continue in place as a hospital zone, we face the prospect of a moldering and deserted hospital structure with no hope of future hospital use. So yes, we do urgently need to address the very real problems with regard to access and affordability of healthcare for all of Lancaster and all of our country. But this is best accomplished with policy changes on a national and state level. Get out and vote, but don't leave this deserted shell of a building in place of a serious and worthy redevelopment of the land on which it sits. David and Kathy Knoll from the 800 block of West Walnut Street say, as a resident of the 800 block of West Walnut, we are fully supportive of the change in zoning from hospital-based to mixed use for the UPMC property in question. A small number of folks have opposed this change on the grounds that the city needs healthcare services such as hospital inpatient beds and desire that the zoning should remain the same. While additional healthcare services, especially for low-income residents, may be needed, clearly 3 organizations, 2 nonprofit and 1 for-profit, have been able to successfully find a financial model to operate a hospital at this location. Not surprisingly, this history indicates the overwhelming challenge for another system to convert the current site into an operational hospital. Much has been stated about the need for affordable housing in this community, and this site lends itself well to that type of development. In our opinion, it is difficult to successfully find developers with the financial resources and the vision to transform a property like this into a finished product that benefits the community. At the very least, the zoning change must occur for that to happen, which is why we are in favor of this zoning change. The recent plan, while not necessarily meeting all expectations, does in fact provide for the housing, office, and retail space that meets the diverse needs of the neighborhood. Please do not allow a small, vocal, outspoken group that does not provide an alternative plan for healthcare redevelopment, but simply protest the current transition to mixed use to deter you from moving forward with rezoning. You have a reasonable plan with a vision of what can occur, a difficult achievement for a project of this size. We respectfully request that you proceed immediately with rezoning to allow this or alternative mixed use plans, consideration to repurpose this location, lest it become a very large abandoned building and a blight in the neighborhood. I also have Nick Hopkins from the 300 block of Northwest End Avenue. I live just around the corner from the old UPMC for which this zoning change request is being made. I've lived on this block off and on since 1961 and returned to it after some years living in Maryland and later Lidditz because I love the character of this neighborhood in particular and of Lancaster in general. Having now seen the plans laid out by the prospective developer for this property, I am strongly in favor of rezoning it to mixed use. I believe that the proposed mix of single-family homes, apartments, and retail and office space with some market rate and some affordable housing options, is an appropriate use of this property. In fact, in my opinion, this will add to the diversity, vibrancy, and livability of this corner of Lancaster, while at the same time boosting the city's overall economic future. It will also add to the overall supply of high-quality housing in the city, which is key to make the entire market more affordable and accessible to those who want to live here. I understand and sympathize with those members of our community who object to this change. feeling that this rezoning permanently eliminates a healthcare resource that was important to the local area. However, I think it's unrealistic to think that this property will ever revert back to being an operating hospital. Nor do I think that having a full service hospital of this type would be the best way to deliver medical care to the community. Providing universal access to quality health care, preventative, mental, acute, etc. in this city, county, state, and country goes well beyond trying to force this issue via a zoning ordinance. Having an aging, unused property like the UPMC building sitting in the middle of the neighborhood does absolutely no good. Does absolutely no one any good. My apologies. I also have letters of support from Respect Farmland, as well as, hold on, the United Disabilities Service, which fully supports this project and is willing to help by utilizing social capital and financial capital to assist in any way possible. And a letter from Assets, also in support, saying that they believe that a mixed-use plan for the site with commercial space dedicated to locally owned, diversely owned, and ethically run companies can be a positive benefit for both the businesses that occupy the space and for new and existing residents of the neighborhood. Those letters in full will be posted on the city website alongside all of the letters that I have read. And I would ask per my reading, that all letters be formally entered into the documentary record of this public hearing.
Mr.
Okay.
President, before we proceed, if I could just ask briefly, we had 2 slides that we were unable to show earlier due to some technical difficulties on my end, and I'm hoping that perhaps Mr. Harris could share those slides now so that we could show a project layout.
That is fine. Mr. Harris, please.
Dominic, maybe if you could just very briefly walk us through these
No
further.
problem. So thanks for getting this up. So really quick, I mean, we had walked through the program before, but what you see in the foreground is the old hospital, the new multifamily, market rate multifamily. One piece that I did neglect to mention earlier was the light blue that runs along College Avenue. We anticipate looking at that as about 10,000 square feet of local independent retail. Purple building would be the office building in the new hospital building. The blue are the for sale market rate townhouses. And then the red orange color would be the second phase of HDC in the townhouse configuration. So I think the other slide is just the same with this image, I think a little smaller.
Okay.
Great.
I'm sorry, was that all? Oh, there we go.
Yep, no, that's all. That was the only slide that was missing previously. Oh, this, yeah, and this was the second one that was just the same image, just repeated.
Excellent.
Thank you for that indulgence.
Not a problem, Ms. Schenk. Mr. Harris, can you stop screen sharing whenever you get a chance? And then again, I will ask that in addition to being entered into the record, that the PowerPoint in total be added to if it's possible, be added to the website. I think the public would be interested to see the whole plan, which of course the petitioners have presented in a fashion that's compelling as we as a community consider this. Okay, so we have heard from city staff. We have heard from the petitioner. We have heard from the proposed developers, Washington Place Equities and the Housing Development Corporation, and their representatives are present. One more pass before we open up to immediate public comment or public comment that I don't have to read, thank God. Are there any questions from council? I do want to give you all first pass. Councilor Craig. Oh, are you shaking your finger?
No, I have a question.
Oh, okay, please, Councilor Craig.
Okay, just for clarity, in some of the documentation that I was reading, there were two addresses, and I just want to be sure. The one address was 210, and then we've referred to it as 250. Are they two different addresses? Which they are, but do they mean the same building?
I think that they do. I've referred to it as 210, but I do note the same inconsistency, and I imagine it's just because we're dealing with a full city block that there's that inconsistency in the documentation. It's the same property.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Craig. Mr. Delfs, is that your understanding?
Yes, sir, that is correct. The city staff has referred to it as 250 College Ave, but I think that it was referred to as 210 College Ave in the petition, but it is the same location.
Okay, does that numerical discrepancy have any bearing on the legal effect of our proceedings?
We shall double check. Ms. Shank, I do not believe so.
No, I do not think that it does. And we've advertised this using the tax parcel number, which is perhaps a better identifier here.
Okay, great. Yes, good. Just want to make sure that we're all operating on the same page. Because I didn't go to law school, so thank God for you. Okay, any other council questions or comments? All right. So, brief reminder to everybody, please begin with your name and the block on which you reside, wherever it is. And please limit your comments to 3 minutes in length. Ms. Straza will add you to the meeting one by one, and then remove you once you are finished. Oh, Ms. Straza also does have her handy dandy time cards. So with that, there is somebody, the first hand we have raised, it looks like is maybe a phone, but whoever is in the meeting as Galaxy J7 Perks, if you would please add them to the meeting, Ms. Strazo. Great. Hey, you are welcome to unmute yourself, state your name, and make your public comment. Hello?
Hello?
Oh, yes. Hi, you are in the public hearing. You are welcome to begin your 3 minutes of comment. Please begin by letting us know your name and the street that you live on.
Yes, my name is Regina Woodall, and I live on West James Street, Mulberry and James.
Please proceed.
Yes, I was calling because I wanted to make a comment about approval of the new housing, that affordable housing. I feel that it's very important that there is affordable housing in Lancaster, because so many people need affordable housing. And I think that it's a good idea that this should move forward.
Thank you, Ms. Woodall. Did you have any additional comments to make? Regina?
Yes, well, I do live in one of HDC's affordable housing, and I'm very happy where I am. They've done a good job with the apartments and the safety of the tenants that live here. And I feel that we need more affordable housings like these so we can feel safe, that the elderly can feel safe going in and going out, and have different things available to them, that things that need taken care of would be taken care of.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you've had a positive experience, and thank you for taking the time to call into the public hearing and sort of get engaged civically. We appreciate your time, Ms. Woodall.
Yes, and I agree with it. I'm praying that the rezoning, everything will go smooth, that there will be no glitches, so that we can move forward with the affordable housing.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Have a good evening.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Ms. Strazo, please add Nick SH to the meeting.
Hi,
Hey,
can
good
you hear
evening,
me?
Nick. Please go ahead.
Hi, Nick Severi Hiller, East Lemon Street. So I have a question and then a brief statement. If I can ask the question and then do the statement, is that okay?
You can absolutely ask a question, Nick. What's up?
So what I was just curious, for the sake of transparency, could we have a timeline on the interactions between City Council and the City Administration with UPMC on this development and this plan that has been outside of the public meetings?
So if I'm to understand you correctly, Nick, are you looking for a timeline of communications between council and the petitioner, council of the administration, all of the above, just so I'm clear? I'm not sure that's a thing that I could do for you in faithful detail on my feet at this moment, but such a thing could absolutely be prepared and, sorry, there's motorcycles going by, could absolutely be prepared and shared with the public. I can tell you, I could tell you when I've been in contact with people, but I don't think I could account for all council members or members of city staff on my feet.
Okay. Yeah, I would love to have that public or some sort of documentation on what, how you.
Mr. Harris, can you make a note around that, please?
Yes, Mr. President.
Thank you. Nick, please continue with your comment.
Yeah, the reason I asked that is because the concern around the actual lack of transparency going on with this deal. So after the vote that the Lancaster City Planning Commission meeting to postpone it, we suddenly started hearing about the plan. We started suddenly hearing prior to the postponement of that vote at the city, City Planning Commission meeting. We were being told again that there wasn't discussions being had. We didn't know, right? And so I bring this point up to kind of illustrate the vote on the rezoning is our bargaining chip, and it's the biggest bargaining chip that we have to demand even more. It's been talked a lot about how this is a massive project. This is the biggest supposed proposal for affordable housing, yet none of that is guaranteed. The affordable housing that's a whole other process. We all know that is not guaranteed. So, I really want to stress that this is how we can hold UPMC's feet to the fire and demand even more and even larger changes and larger demands upon them. It's really unfortunate that they have put the need for healthcare access or access to healthcare against the need for housing, which both the city needs desperately. And so I just want to emphasize that if we vote to rezone this property, we lose that bargaining chip, and we lose that power in the negotiating. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Please add Linda to the meeting.
Good evening. My name is Linda Gort. I live in the 900 block of West Walnut Street, and I am a 50-year city resident and a more than 20-year West End resident. And I'm strongly in support of this zoning change. I realize that there are a lot of things that we still have to work out going forward, but without the zoning change to mixed use, we will not be able to. So I spent 13 years of my professional career at St. Joe's. And I would like to say that inpatient hospital beds are not what we need going forward in healthcare, although there are many things we do need. Every day I work as a family nurse practitioner at Lancaster Health Center, and every day I see people who have health crises, many of which are because they have no affordable housing, no access to city transportation, no access to the things that those of us who live here thoroughly enjoy, including green space. So even if we could remediate the building, even if that would happen, it can't happen because that's not what we really need as a community. We've recently lived through the construction of Longcrest, and we love having new people and different people in our neighborhoods. And I think I speak for all of us who are out walking, since that's a lot of what we're doing during COVID. And finally, we need to look at long-term solutions and affordable housing and more city accessible housing that will decrease our carbon footprint is exactly the direction in which we can go if we can make this move. I know it's hard to not look just a couple days down the road, but we as a community and city council, we trust you to look for a long-term solutions for our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gort. I appreciate your time. Ms. Strazo, if you would please add the caller labeled "Put People First PA" to the call. Hey, good evening. As you know, please begin by stating your name, and Ms. Strazo will help you with the time limit. Please go ahead.
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay. It's Tammy Rojas, West Vine Street. So my name is Tammy Rojas. I'm a member of Put People First PA, and I'm on the coordinating committee of the PA Poor People's Campaign, a national call for more revival. I'm calling in to speak out against the rezoning of St. Joseph Hospital at this time, and here's why. We must wait until after we get through the COVID-19 pandemic before we give away a public resource that could help us get through this crisis. The longer UPMC still owns the property, the better chance we have of getting what we need versus more of the same gentrification and empty promises. We must demand UPMC is held accountable for their actions and how they have harmed our community. They should not be given a pass and allowed to so easily continue to profit off the pain and suffering of our people. UPMC has received one of the largest COVID-19 relief packages in the United States and has $6 billion in reserve, all while pushing the reopen economy and narrative across the country. St. Joseph Hospital served tens of thousands every year in our community. It may not have been profitable enough for a healthcare predator like UPMC, but we can't deny the many who were served by that hospital, including the workers who have also been displaced when UPMC closed this facility, leaving at least 150 people without jobs. With UPMC and Amazon partnering in the healthcare industry and both already having a strong international footing, the poor and dispossessed across the globe will suffer due to this predatory practices of exploiting workers. Those of us who have been organizing against UPMC for almost 2 years now stated during a city planning commission meeting that there is a statewide movement mounting to hold UPMC accountable. And when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, that sparked the flame for that movement that was already building. The Pittsburgh, Altoona, and York Put People First PA healthcare rights committees joined Lancaster in our efforts to push back against UPMC to get our public health care advocate legislation and healthcare is a human right in Pennsylvania. And there are more communities looking to follow suit. A Lancaster City government employee once told us that taking on UPMC is like taking on Goliath, and a win against them would be impossible. I would argue that the employee needs a refresher on their Bible verse because David beat Goliath despite all those around him saying he couldn't because he was frail, and Goliath was strong, powerful giant. David won against Goliath because he knew his enemy and knew himself. He used his strength against Goliath's weakness and won, thus saving his people. What we are asking Lancaster City Council to do is support us, as many leaders across the country that are part of the Poor People's Campaign already have.
Thank you, Ms. Rojas.
Mr. President,
Yes.
if I could interject, I simply wanted to apologize. I realized that Ms. Rojas had submitted written comments that I had failed to include in the listing that I provided you. I had realized that a few minutes ago and sent that to you, but apparently timing was bad.
Is it to the same general effect as her comments now, or is it materially different?
No, it's the same general effect.
If everybody will, did you send that to me?
I did.
Well, go ahead and add it to the documentary record and to be posted. I'm going to review it briefly.
And I just simply wanted to apologize for not having included that in the listing.
Yeah, it is exactly to the text of Ms. Rojas' comments and will be documented. Thank you, Mr. Harris. That's fine. Ms. Strazo, if you would please add Matthew Rosing to the meeting. Oh, there we go. Hey, good evening, Matthew.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, Matthew, yes.
Okay, thank you. Matthew Rosing, 200 block West Vine Street. My name is Matthew Rosing. I am the co-coordinator of the Lancaster Healthcare Rights Committee with Put People First PA. I'm also a member of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for more revival. I'm speaking out against the rezoning of the St. Joseph Hospital as one of the tens of thousands of people who were served by the hospital every year. The St. Joseph Hospital property belongs to the poor and dispossessed in our community. It has served the poorest residents for the last 135 years, and in keeping with that spirit, we have our own vision for redevelopment, which includes a medical clinic, a dental clinic, a homeless shelter with a family space with activities for children, a community garden, a government entity that would manage the people getting help from resources, directing them to resources, assisting them in applying for benefits and jobs, especially making sure that we have people that can help with any language barriers. All of this can be done on an HC zone. We're also thinking of transitional housing, and if we do that, then a rezoning will be discussed in the future. We are tired of companies' priorities being put over people's. We are tired of the rubber stamping that's going on with City Council on these major development projects without putting the needs of the people front and center. We are in the middle of a global pandemic. It is unthinkable to rezone this property at this time, being the redevelopment plan put forth by Washington Place Equities. It is not enough. The people are tired of crumbs. We're tired of seeing our city government bend to the will of the rich. The poor and dispossessed of this community are tired of business as usual. Your actions on this matter have far-reaching consequences. Your decision will impact the entire county, not just the city. Now is not the time to be nearsighted. We must do the right thing here. And the right thing here is to put the most vulnerable in our community first for a change. We are holding the call to action in conjunction with other organizations across the nation. We will be having Medicaid marches across this nation in the final week of September into October. We will be holding UPMC accountable for the harm they've done to our community and others across the state. We'll also be holding our elected officials accountable for the damage they are caused by putting profit over people. I just want to remind you one more thing. You represent the people, not companies. You are accountable to the people, not corporations. Do what you were elected to do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rosing. Attendees, as you are watching, is there any additional public comment? Oh, Mr. Joshua Red and John McGran, please add Mr. Red to the meeting. Ms. Strazo.
Hi, can you hear me?
I'm having, speak again.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Josh Red. I live on the 400 block of West Frederick. I'm a longtime resident of Lancaster City, having spent most of my 15 years here on the west side for work and where I've resided. Unfortunately, I've had to visit both Lancaster General Hospital and the former St. Joseph Hospital when it was still operational. And it's been more times than I can count. But two of them really stick out to me. On one visit to St. Joseph, I think it was around 2008, maybe 2007. I didn't have any insurance at the time. I had to wait in the ER for an emergency supply of life-sustaining medication, which I prematurely run out. This was 12 years ago, not 2020, and yet I had to wait an exceptionally long time to get this simple thing taken care of. I know it's a low priority thing, just medication, but I feel like it was there way over an hour. And then last November, I was rushed to LGH after suffering from epileptic seizure and hurting my head when I had fallen down. I spent somewhere between 4 to 5 hours in the hospital, in the ER. And most of that time was just waiting for the doctor to come fix me up. Multiple staples in my head, not a fun thing. I can see why I had waited so long. There were people in the hallways and in beds, in wheelchairs, just waiting for their turn to be seen by medical personnel, waiting for their own treatment. And this was last year, before the pandemic had even hit. And that night, as I left and went to the ER lobby, I saw dozens more people still waiting for their own turns to be seen, like at least 30 people. My experiences are just some of many other people in this city at both hospitals. I know it's just one hospital now, and so we need to address this before it gets worse. And with the growth of Lancaster and surrounding areas, we need to have this. It's essential that we have proper facilities to meet these needs for the people that already live here. This means having adequate beds and services at these medical centers, programs and centers to address and alleviate homelessness, mental health, and the other issues that affect our city. I believe the current site of 250 College Ave should not be rezoned at this time. If we do not have the facilities and services to adequately care for and sustain the current population now, the problems are going to get worse. And the COVID-19 pandemic is overworking the current and only hospital in the city as it is. I have friends at the hospital, and it's just one horror story after another. As the zone stands now, the current buildings at 250 could be rehabilitated to meet these needs that I already mentioned. And they could offer many healthcare and related jobs. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Red, for your comments this evening and for continuing to engage in successive meetings on this topic. We appreciate your time. Ms. Strazo, would you please add Mr. Always a step ahead of me, Mr. McGran?
I don't want to be, you can hear me? Yep.
We can hear you.
Okay. I don't want to be long-winded because many of the preceding comments are comments that I support. What I would just say is, I support this project. I'm glad that it's happening. I'm glad that there's a mixed-use component and an affordable housing component. I think it's going to enhance the neighborhood, and especially when I walk. Oh, and I'm sorry, I should have started out by saying I live 600 block of West Chestnut. I've lived here with my family for 15 years. Been a city resident for 25 of the last 28 years. So it may, when as we walk through our neighborhood, I think it's going to be a great compliment. I think it's going to enhance our neighborhood, and especially when I walk past the recently completed Longcrest project, which further out on Walnut Street and Marietta Avenue. I think this project, when it's completed, is going to complement that nicely. I think it's exciting to see what Longcrest was able to do to take a long time open space in our city and turn it into a really great asset. So so I'm glad that this is on the table. I hope that it moves forward, and I also just don't. I think the alternative doesn't look good to me. The idea that if this doesn't move forward, I can't imagine it returning to a hospital use, and I don't know what it would look like if that for our neighborhood if this sat underused or unused for a long time. So I hope you'll consider moving this forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McGran. All right, one more time. Are there any additional public comments at the appointed time? Going once? Going twice? I can't remember who this, please add them to the call. Hey, yes, good evening, ma'am.
Yes, I just wanted to add to my comment that I made earlier. My name is Regina Woodall. After listening to all the comments, and the different opinions concerning city council and the hospital, I would like to say that I think that the council should still move forward with the original plans of how would I say that? Renovating the old hospital into affordable houses and other offices that they plan on doing. I think, as the man said earlier, it would enhance the neighborhood, even, give the neighborhood a better safe feel, and without the building just sitting there empty is not serving any purpose. So I just want to thank the city council and all those involved taking the building into consideration for affordable housing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Woodall. And then please add, I assume this is Tammy again, back.
Yes, hey, I think that there needs to be more clarity given to the public about how realistic this affordable housing proposal is, because it's been stated several times, this is not guaranteed. Other states have tried this. Let's be for real about how much we're probably really gonna wind up getting. Because I think people think like this majority of this project is gonna be affordable housing. We're gonna probably wind up with, I'm guessing, based on some research, maybe like more like 15% of this project, and none of it will be on the main site. So we need to make that clear to people, the realisticness of how much we're actually supposedly getting and who's really gonna be able to afford this quote unquote affordable housing, because again, that language is very unclear to the majority in our community. And our redevelopment vision does give this a purpose, and UPMC, who owns the property and who has chosen to close the hospital, has the means to make that redevelopment vision happen. They have helped out creating a homeless shelter and other entities in Pittsburgh. They can do it in Lancaster. They owe us. We don't owe them anything.
Thank you, Ms. Rojas. Okay, counselors. One more bite at the apple. So we've heard, let me back up a step. As is clear in the name public hearing, these are designed by law to allow us to hear from petitioners and to hear from the public. We have heard from several members of the public. Two of them we were fortunate enough to hear from twice. Are there any remaining burning questions for counselors, for the petitioner or the developers, or for city staff for that matter? I'm not seeing anything. Okay, well, in that case, provided there are no additional council comments, I would, with the consent of the rest of council, bring this public hearing to a close. Do any members of council object? All right, in that case, just to, Ms. Schenk, the petitioner has nothing else?
No, we have nothing else to present.
Thank you.
And Mr. President, we did clarify the address just in case there was any confusion. 250 College Ave is the mailing address. We've used that in shorthand. The correct address is 210 College Avenue. And as Ms. Schenk said, it is best identified by the tax property ID, just in case there was any concern. Mr. Douglas Smith checked on it for us.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Smith, and thank you, Mr. Delps. In that case, I hereby Ms. O'Neill.
I just wanted to clarify that the exhibits were admitted into the record. I know that they were offered, but I wasn't sure if that had been formalized.
I'm sorry. I considered them to be admitted into the record.
Okay. Thank you. Just wanted to clarify.
Yep. No. But Mr. Danio, is that also your understanding that they were admitted? And if not, let's go ahead and do that.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify that the proof of publication has not yet been received. We have a digital copy, but we don't have the actual copy from LNP, and that can be provided to the court reporter at a later date if that's acceptable.
I think that's for you, Ms. Schenk.
Certainly.
Thank you both. All right. Going once. Going twice. All right, so I hereby adjourn this public hearing on the rezoning at the site. I'm not going to read the parcel number, 250 College Avenue. So the hearing is adjourned to the assembled public. A vote on this, which within the legal parameters of the code of the city of Lancaster, within said legal parameters, will be held on September 8th as advertised. Whether the result is yay or nay or tabling or what have you, the vote in question will be September 8th, and there will be, as with any other ordinance change, an opportunity for public comment at that time, and a somewhat less restrained legal boundary for questions or comments that counselors may want to make. But just so that everybody has that information, and that is taking place at the regularly scheduled council meeting time. So that will be 7:30 p.m. on Tuesday, September 8th. All right, thank you all for staying engaged and for the comments that have been submitted. All comments will be entered into the record as well as posted on the website for you to access. Thank you, everybody, very much for your time. Thank you to the public, to Mayor Sirachi, to the city staff, to the petitioners and developers, and of course, to my council colleagues, Mr. Harris and Mr. Danio, the court reporter, for making tonight's evening possible. Have a good night.